Greetings, fellow simmers. It's Quentin J. Parker, your pilot, and I'm going to demonstrate the Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, or CAPS. This is must-have training for flying the SR-20 and SR-22, because these airframes are not approved to spin. In fact, should your plane enter a spin, Cirrus explicitly instructs you to deploy the parachute and not attempt any recovery. If passengers are being carried, this procedure should be covered during their safety briefing should the pilot become incapacitated. So, you're bopping along, minding your own business and enjoying your very expensive plane, when a life-threatening emergency occurs and parachute deployment is determined to be safer than continued flight and landing. In this case, after a spectacularly shoddy pre-flight inspection, both my left aileron and rudder have separated from the plane. The first thing to do is reduce the airspeed as much as possible. The maximum demonstrated deployment speed during testing was about 133 to 140 knots indicated. The parachute has been deployed in excess of 180 knots with successful outcomes, but in others, it's ripped right from the airframe. Don't roll the dice on this. Next, move the mixture lever to cut off. The parachute activation handle cover and safety pin were removed on pre-start. Otherwise, I'd have to do that now. Because I have altitude and airspeed, I have options. My first instinct is to try and save the plane by gliding it in, but I instead look for spacious tracts of minimally inhabited land to position myself over before pulling the chute. Be mindful of the winds aloft that can blow you into a populated region, and you end up having to ask a stranger if you can crash on their couch after the fact. I've got near full right stick deflection and can barely keep the plane wings level. This makes the flight not just unflyable, but very likely unlandable. I'm now committed to activating the CAPS. Take hold of the activation T handle with both hands and pull it straight down, chin-up style, until it's fully extended. This will take about 45 pounds of force. Brace for the sudden deceleration and any whipping action. Begin shutdown functions and double check to make sure that the mixture isn't cut off. Move the fuel selector to off. I was well into cruise flight, so the fuel pump was already off. Turn the ignition switch to off. If time permits, declare an emergency with the appropriate agency or on guard channel 121.5 and announce CAPS activation. You can immediately access guard channel by pressing the COM transfer button for 2 seconds. It'll automatically tune 121.5 into the active window. If you know it, include your location in the broadcast. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is November Charlie at India Tango Tango Golf. A red and white SR22 on guard channel broadcasting blind. I've had to pull my parachute, and I'm going down midway between the Dumphy and at Cot intersections. One solo board. My mobile number is 215-555-1212. I'll engage my ELT. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Once the caps deploys, the plane will descend at around 1,700 feet per minute. This means altitude equals time. The lower your deployment altitude, the less time you have until touchdown to secure the cabin or for the aircraft to stabilize under the parachute. For example, at an altitude of 9,000 feet above ground level, you've got just over 5 minutes. At 3,000 above ground level, you've got about 100 seconds. You may have had a hard landing or two in your life, but hitting the earth at almost 2,000 feet per minute, well, it's gonna sting. If you haven't switched off the battery alternator masters, now's the time. Tighten your seatbelts and harnesses. Secure any loose items. Brace for impact by assuming the emergency landing body position. Place both hands on the lap, clasping one wrist with the opposite hand and holding the upper torso erect against the seat backs. The seat cushions contain an aluminum honeycomb core designed to crush under impact to absorb downward loads and help protect the spine from compression injury. Also, if they're installed, be mindful of airbag seat belts. In the pilot's operating handbook, there is a recommendation to leave the doors latched. If they jam, there's an emergency exit hammer located right here on the underside of the lid of the center armrest. Any doors that are unlatched will probably break away on impact. If you choose to unlatch a door, just unlatch one. But, as with everything else, it's the discretion of the pilot in command. Ow. Lastly, when the aircraft lands and comes to a complete stop, evacuate quickly and move upwind away from it. You move upwind because if there are high winds, the parachute may inflate and drag the airframe. It might not look like it, but this is what a wind looks like. Namely because I'm alive to say that. So, let's recap. Airspeed, minimum possible. Mixture, cutoff. Activation handle cover and safety pin, remove. Activation handle, pull straight down with both hands. Mixture, ensure cutoff. If time permits, declare the emergency and announce caps activation after you've completed any necessary radio communications and before touchdown. Fuel selector, off. Battery and alternator master switches, off. Ignition switch, off. Fuel pump, off. ELT, on. Seat backs and harnesses, tighten. Loose items, secure. Assume emergency landing body position. And, after the airframe touches down and comes to a complete stop, evacuate quickly, moving away from it in the upwind direction. I encourage any Cirrus SR sim pilot who sims on realistic to familiarize him or herself with this emergency procedure. I knew that there was more to caps activation than just pulling the parachute handle, and now you do too. This is your pilot, Quentin J. Parker, and I'll catch up with you guys a little later. Stay out of trouble.